Hello everyone, welcome to the first class of backend development using Fast API Intermediate Track. My name is Xavier Bassi and I'll be your tutor for this bootcamp. Okay, so for today's class, we are going to look at an introduction to what Fast API is. Okay, and during the course of this class, we will be covering certain concepts. So here are my outlines. For this class, we'll be looking at overview of Fast API, and we'll also be looking at Fast API installation alongside setting up our project folder, because as we move forward, we'll be building projects, and as such, there are some certain structures or some certain way your folder should be structured. And we'll also be creating some basic API endpoints, and then we'll be testing it out using a platform called Postman, right? Being intermediate, I don't think Postman should sound new to us. I don't think Postman should sound new to us. So quickly, let's get started. So before we actually get started, though, all right. So I want us to understand what API is, right? Because we'll be making use of Fast API to create API. So what exactly is API? Okay, now API, okay, it simply stands for application program interface. All right, so you could look at API as a mechanism or a software, right, that accepts requests, HTTP requests precisely. So it accepts these requests, right, process it, and then do what? Gives a response. That's basically how API behaves or what it does. So API is a mechanism that takes in requests, HTTP requests, carry out specific action for each of these requests, and then at the end of it all, give out a response for this request. Okay, that's basically what an API is. So knowing this, what exactly is then Fast API? Okay, what exactly is Fast API? So from what we have on the screen here, we could see that Fast API is what is a Python web framework that allows you to what to build that mechanism I just explained. That's the API. So it allows you to build that mechanism quickly and efficiently. Right? That's what Fast API is. It's a Python web framework that you use to build a mechanism that accepts requests, carry out a specific action for that request, and then give out a response for that specific request. And this can be done quickly and efficiently using Fast API. All right, and then it is based on what? On a standard Python type hint, which makes it easy and what? Intuitive. So basically, what I want you guys to pick out of this is that Fast API is what we'll be using to do what? To build APIs. And then in order for us to build this API, we must do what? We must understand the fundamental of Python programming. Alright, so see, so both of them go hand in hand. Alright. For us to use Fast API, we need to understand Python programming. So but then, why would we choose to use Fast API? Why not use other frameworks? Why not use other? You may want to ask this. Why not use other frameworks apart from Fast API? All right. So what I want us to know is that using Fast API comes with some interesting benefits. All right. One of these benefits is the benefit of automatic data validation. Right, Fast API actually offer this automatic data validation, serialization, and automatic documentation generation. Right, so you don't actually need to, after writing your Fast API codes, you now come to write the documentation for it. So Fast API actually offer to write this documentation automatically for you. Right, so there are other benefits, right, which actually includes speed, all right, and ease of use, and then asynchronous support. So it allows us to write asynchronous code as well. All right, a very interesting benefit. So basically that is that the overview of fast API and the benefit it comes with us. All right, so moving forward, we will also explore other interesting benefits as we move forward. All right, you yourself, you get to see other interesting benefit that comes with fast API. That if you have actually written API code in order with other frameworks, then you can be able to compare and see that indeed fast API, okay, offers much benefit pertaining to compared to other API frameworks, right? Compared to other API frameworks. So quickly, we will actually look at the prerequisites of this track, right? So what is okay? What and what should you know beforehand in order for you to be in intermediate track, or in order for you to follow along as we move forward in this bootcamp? So first of all, most importantly, you need to understand Python programming language fundamentals. You cannot escape it. You cannot even avoid it. Okay, because Fast API is a framework that uses what? Python programming language. So if you do not understand the fundamentals of Python programming language, you will likely be finding it difficult, right, in this bootcamp. Okay, so if you lack this understanding, I would recommend you go for beginner's track. The Python fundamental is explained properly before moving you to the basic of fast API there, right? But here we assume that you already have the fundamentals of Python programming. All right, and then you also need to understand web development fundamentals. So you need to understand how the front end works, you need to understand how the back end works, and you need to understand how these two parties come together to form what a working web application system. All right, then you also need to understand JSON and serialization, very important concept as well. And then you need to understand the basic command line and version control. So we'll be doing most things in command line, so it shouldn't be, it shouldn't look complicated, or it shouldn't look like magic. These will be basic command line and commands, right? So it will be basic command line command that I'm sure as intermediate we must have used it regularly by now. All right, so those are the prerequisites. Those are the things that is required that in order to do what, to sustain or to understand and follow up in this particular track. So but I assume that all of us here uh actually have this already, so this shouldn't be a problem. But if at all, if any of us have problem, especially with Python fundamental, at this point I would recommend the beginner's track. All right, so let's see how we can carry out fast API installation and also set up our project folder for our project moving forward in this bootcamp. So quick, unlike other frameworks, fast API is quite easy to actually install. And to install that, we simply use the command pip install fast API. It's as simple as that. You have your API installed. So where exactly would you be typing this command? Of course, in your command prompt. So that's where we'll carry this, and then we go there, and then we do what? We type. But then there's one thing you need to put into consideration, one thing to note. All right, in order for this command to execute successfully, you must have Python installed on your device. Right, please need to have Python installed on your device for this command to execute successfully. Right, so if you're not sure if you have Python installed, you could simply navigate to your command prompt, your CMD, and there you type the command Python. All right, so if you execute this command, you should have a writing like this. All right, a writing that would show you the current version of your Python installed on your device. All right, for me, I have Python 3.12.3 installed, so you can see mine there. But if you actually execute this command Python, and then you have an error or a message saying not a recognized command, at that point you do not have Python installed on your device. At that point, you do not have Python installed on your device. So what you want to do before going to install Fast API, you want to make sure that Python is installed on your device. So to do that, you simply navigate to find your browser. You need to locate where your browser is. All right, in this case, this is my own browser here. So you want to go to python.org/download. That is the official site. So you want to go to python.org/download. So here is where you want to navigate to, right? Now when you reach here, you can simply click on this button that says download Python. So I won't click on it because I already have mine installed. So you want to click on that, and then Python would be downloaded, yet not installed, bro. This will download a Python installation file, right, for your operating system. That button there is dynamic, so it automatically detects your operating system and give you the appropriate file for your OS. So for those on Windows, which I am on Windows, you will get a .exe file, and those on every other programming on every other operating system will get the appropriate file for their own operating system. All right, so after that installation has been completed, right, what you want to do is you want to simply navigate to your download folder, or to wherever that file has been downloaded to. You want to go there. In this case, you for those on Windows, you should see yours on download section, in your download section, this section here. So I already have mine installed, and I think I still have the installation file. So you will see a file like this. That file that I just have there, that file there, you will see that kind of file there. What you want to do is you want to double click on that file, and then you will have this pop-up. This pop-up works for those in Mac as well, and I think those in Linux as well. So what you want to do is you don't want to immediately go and click the install now. What you want to do first is you want to make sure that this path where it says add Python to path is checked. Please make sure that box is checked. All right, so you don't have any problem. Now if you don't have that box checked, when you want to go and confirm again if Python is installed in your command prompt, it will tell you that command is not still found. Right, so that's why you have to have that box checked, so that your Python can be added to your path. So once it's checked, then you can simply do what? Click on install now, and it's as simple as that. And Python will be installed on your device. So the installation process is about 2 to 3 minutes, and you're done. Okay, so it's quite easy and it's quick. So I will not actually install mine because I already have it installed on my device. So I'll cancel this. All right, I'll cancel that, and I'll as well as close this as well. So once you have Python installed, then what you want to do is you can now go to your CMD, and then you can now type pip install fast API. Pip install fast API. So I can now go to my command prompt, my CMD again, and for those of us that actually just installed Python, you could just come back and try and see if it's actually installed successfully. And if you have that, then you are good to go. All right, if you have that, then you are good to go. All right, so we could simply now come here now, and then we could now type what our pip installed fast API, and then we click what? Enter, and it do what? It will carry out that installation for us. But for me, I will not do this. All right, I will not do this because this will actually install fast API globally. So it means that all your projects will be using the current version of fast API at this point that we want to do what? Carry out this installation. Now this is not recommended, right? This is not recommended, right? It is recommended that we use what? A virtual environment, a container that should manage our dependencies per project. It means that every project that you create should have a virtual environment. So installing fast API globally is not recommended. One reason why it's not actually recommended is that fast API over time is having what? New updates similar to Python, because so we used to have Python 2.7, and then currently we now have Python 3.12, so that as we go, more updates is what is coming in. So over time, there are some functions in this current Python, in this current fast API that will no longer function, or that will no longer work 10 years to come or 5 years to come. What does that mean? It simply means that that function will not, when we use that function in our code, it will no longer function, and then it will do what it will require for us to do what, to update our fast API. So then when we now carry out the update on that fast API, it simply means that all our existing project that was referencing the previous version of fast API is in trouble. So it means that we need to go back there and start editing all those code, all those projects to what, to use the current update of fast API. So that will be the problem there. So for that, it is not, I will not do this. I will not do this because this will install it globally on my device. So what I want to do, or what I would do, is to do what, is to create a virtual environment per project. Now you can use a virtual env to create what, a virtual environment, but I will not do that because when you install Python, it comes with a module called venv. Now we can use that module to do what, to create a virtual environment and save our dependencies for each project there. All right, so how do we do this? So first of all, I want to create my folders. All right, so I want to choose a directory where all my projects will do what, will live. In this case, I want my projects to live in desktop and within this folder, within KodeCamp 4 intermediate folder, this folder there. So all our code will live here, all our projects will live within this folder, right? So let's assume that you want to start a new project now. I can call that project 1. So what do I do? I'll now come here, create a new project, a new folder, sorry, and I'll call it project 1. Now all the code for project 1 will live within what, project 1 folder, right? So, and if I have another project again to build, say project 2, well, what I want to do again is to navigate to my desktop again, go to where, to KodeCamp 4 intermediate, and then within KodeCamp 4 intermediate, I can now create what, a new folder, and I'll call this folder project 2 as well, project 2, and I will do same for each and every time I want to do what, create a new project. I will go to what, to my desktop, find what, KodeCamp 4, and then we'll create another folder called project 3, and I'll keep doing that for each time I need to do what, to create a project. All right, now we want to work with what, we project 1, right? We are currently with project 1. That was what you want to work with. Now within my project 1, I want to have 2 other folders, right? One of that folder would be called the main folder. The main folder. You go call yours anything. Please, all this folder naming it could be of your own choice, right? It's not necessary that it must be called main folder, but at least let it be descriptive, right? So in this case, main folder, they actually mean that is where the main or the source code would live. The source code for my API project will live within what, the main folder. So I have the main folder there. That means every source code for project 1 will live what, in my main folder. Then within my project 1, I also want to have another folder, and that folder I will call it venv folder, right? Venv folder. Now that's my virtual environment folder, right? You could name yours anything, but in my case, I would love to name mine venv. You could name yours your virtual environment, but the one virtual environment, anyhow you want to name yours, right? The naming does not really matter. Now to create that folder, I will need to go back to my command prompt, and I will need to navigate to this project 1 directory. So to save me the stress of navigating, I could simply just copy this path, the directory there, and then go to my cmd, and then just simply do cd, and then I'll paste that directory. Cd there stands for what? Change directory. So I want to change directory from where I am currently to my project 1 folder, right? That lives within what, my KodeCamp 4 intermediate folder that exists in my desktop. All right, so I simply click enter, and then I am currently in that directory or in that folder. And if I want to list out what is available in that folder, I should have the main folder, that folder that we just created. and state that all our source code will live within that folder. Now click on what, enter, and then you could see that we have what, the main folder there that lives there. All right, so the rest there is not your problem, right? So you want to see the main folder, this folder. That tells us that I am currently in that product one folder. Now within this folder, I can do what, create my virtual environment, and I said that I will make use of the venv folder the venv module that comes alongside with Python installation, right? That comes alongside with Python installation. And how do we make use of that folder, or how do we create these virtual environments using that module? We simply type python -m the venv module venv, and then what follows after the venv is the name of your virtual environment. So this is where you want to give your virtual environment the name. It could be project one virtual environment, it could be my virtual environment, it could be anything. So but in my case, I usually like calling it venv, the same name as the built-in Python venv. Don't worry, those names will not conflict, right? They will not conflict. Python will be able to identify which is the module and which is the environment name. All right, so I'll call my venv same name as the virtual environment, same name as the venv module. Right, so if I execute this now, this will take few seconds, and then it will spin up to create a virtual environment folder for us, alongside with what we need to start doing was installing things in that virtual environment. So if you go back to okay, so this is done here, this has finished. Now if you go back to your file explorer again, you see that what we now have venv folder. So that folder has just been created for us, right? And this folder contains all the necessary packages that we need to do what, to start a virtual environment. So we couldn't have done this manually. So imagine us coming to create a venv similar to how we created this main folder. We now come and create venv, and then we now have to know that this venv must have the include folder, and then also have the library folder, and then also that this could be stressful. So for that, we did not actually have to do that manually. We had to make use of that command, of this command here, and that was created for us with ease. All right, that was created for us with all the necessary files to make what, a virtual environment. So once we have that, now we can do what, we can now simply pip install our fast API into that venv folder. That way fast API only lives within what, our project one environment. All right, it only lives within that project. Now if we also go for project 2, we will not do what, we will not go ahead and create another venv for project 2, okay, and so on for every other project. But then before you carry out the pip install fast API, right, before we carry out the pip install fast API, we want to make sure that our virtual environment is active. If not, we end up running the installation again as global installation. So you want to make sure that every time you want to install a specific dependency for a project, you make sure that project virtual environment is active. If not, it will go to global installation, right? And we don't want that. So currently, to know if your environment is active, you would see your environment name right before this directory, enclosed in parentheses. So your environment name would come before this directory. That's if it is active. But if it's not active, then it will not show, which is what we have there. So right now our environment is not active. So to make it active, we simply call the environment name, which in this case we called it venv for me. I don't know how you call yours, but however you call yours, that name should come in now. So in my case, say venv / for those in Windows, / and then scripts, and then / again, activate. Right, and that will activate your virtual environment, which you can see now that the name now comes in parentheses before what the directory we have there. Right, now for those on Linux, we want to do source, your virtual environment name, which in this case should be venv or whatever you call yours. Now /, not / for those in Linux, /, and then bin // again and then activate, and that works for those in Linux. All right. Okay, so after that, after we've activated our environment or make it live, we can now carry out our pip install fast API, and that will carry out fast API installation, not globally, but then to the venv folder, this folder here, this folder that we have there, this folder here, sorry, here. So to carry out the instruction inside this folder, so it means that if I delete that folder, I can delete the fast API installation out without conflicting with every other project. So that has basically how your project setup should always be. We have the parent folder that contains all your projects, and then a project folder for each of the projects, and then within the project folder, a folder that should hold your source code and the virtual environment folder. That is that, and that is how it should be. Right, so this is still collecting some dependencies. So you could see that it is actually collecting fast API, right? So what happens here is that it will install fast API alongside with what, with every dependency that fast API needs to function efficiently, right? So that's how that installation will work. So it's doing that, and this should be done in few seconds. It should be done in few seconds. So it's installing a lot of things here. It's getting a lot of things here. So these things are required. These things are required for fast API. Fast API need these things to work efficiently, right? To work efficiently. Right. So that is still upgoing, still working. That is still going. All right. So we're waiting for that to finish up. All right. We're waiting for that to finish up. So I want us to really take a look at how this folder thing works. All right. That's how your project should work. Your project folder, your project folders, as many as you want them, and then within them, your main folder for your source code and your virtual environment folder. So I believe our installation should be done by now. Okay, so it's installing. So you can see that it's installing a lot of things. So this is our first API that we intended to install, and these are the other things that come alongside with it. So we have WebSocket, we have UJSON, we have watch files, we have UVCon, we have Rich, we have Pydantic, we have Fast API CLI, we have Typer, we have a lot of things there. Alright, so that has finished. So you can say that this has successfully installed, but all these things have been installed successfully. Alright, so that is that, and your Fast API is installed. So after this installation, we want to make sure that we are in our source code folder, right? That we want to navigate to what our main folder. This is where we want all our source code to live. So we can just do that by simply changing directory to main, and then we want to open up main in VS Code. So to open up main in VS Code, you can simply go to the folder and simply open up this folder in VS Code. Right, you can open it up in VS Code, or in my case, I love opening mine from command prompt. So you could just simply type code and then dot, it will open this up for you in VS Code. So this is mine. I opened mine up in VS Code, and I believe that by now all of us we should have that setup process figured out or understood, and then we've opened our main folder in our VS Code. So one more thing that we want to do again to complete the project setup is we want to tell VS Code that for each time we want to execute our source code, that we want to make use of the dependencies that exist within our virtual environment folder, because by default VS Code will do what? VS Code will reference the global Python interpreter, right? So That is how VS Code works by default. It will reference the global Python interpreter. So what do I mean? When you install your Python, the directory which your Python is being installed to, the interpreter that lives within that directory, that is what VS Code will use to process your Python files. Alright, so but then we've now installed Fast API, and we're likely going to write Python code that will reference some function from Fast API. So in that case, VS Code will keep telling you that there's an error in a certain function that we may want to do what to use or to import from Fast API. VS Code will keep underlining that function as invalid function, right? So then that's because your Fast API is not being installed in the global directory. Your Fast API is being installed where? In your venv or whatever folder you name it, in your project directory folder, right? So now we want to change that default behavior. We want to tell VS Code to make use of the interpreter that lives in our venv folder, not the global interpreter. All right, to do that, you simply hold down Control plus Shift and then plus P, and then you want to type for interpreter. So I have mine up there. That's because I've used it recently, right? So I've done this recently, that's why it's there. So in your case, you may not have it as the first option there. So you want to search for interpreter, and then this should now be the first thing that shows. So you want to find Python select interpreter. You can click on Python select interpreter, and then you want to do what? You want to select on enter interpreter path. So you click on enter interpreter path, and it tells you what to find the interpreter's path. You click on find interpreter's path, right? And then you want to go to the virtual environment for that project. In this case, it is project 1. So I'll go to project 1, go to my venv in project 1, go to scripts. Now you want to look for python.exe, which is what we have, which is there. So you want to select this interpreter, that VS Code should use this interpreter. And the reason why we choose this one is that this interpreter will have access to all the dependencies within our virtual environment. So when we import certain function from Fast API, VS Code will automatically know that this function is from Fast API, and as such will not underline or throw an error when you try to execute your Python file. So I'll select this, and then I'll select interpreter, and with that you are good to go. So that was the Fast API installation alongside with project setup. All right, so let's see how we can do what? Write some basic API code. Let's see how we can write some basic API code, basic interesting API code. Right, let's see how we can use Fast API to write this mechanism that takes request, HTTP request, and then provide an action, perform a specific action for that request, and do what? Give back response for it. Okay, so to do this, of course, we've already set up our project, and we've operated in VS Code. So we can simply create a Python file. Right, so in this case, I'll create one here within my main folder. Remember, within your code, that's where all your source code should live. Right, so within my main folder, I will just create main.py. And remember, it's a Python application, so of course it ends with py. All right, so this is our first API code. All right, so it will be simple, very basic API code. So what I want to do now is import our Fast API. Right, so you want to import everything from Fast API so that we can start doing what? Writing our API code. So I'll simply say from Fast API import Fast API. All right, so that will bring in the Fast API module into our file, so we can start referencing it. So the next thing you want to do is we want to make an instance of the Fast API itself. So we can make an instance of the Fast API itself by simply saying Fast API, and then we invoke this function here. We invoke that function there. So that becomes our entry point to our project. So where so once we execute this file, Fast API will look for where it's being invoked, and then from there it can then navigate to wherever, so whatsoever code is being attached to that function. All right, so usually what we will do is we want to we want to assign this invocation to a variable, so that we could be referencing other function from this Fast API module there. Now we could leave it like this, but then we have to be using this all the time. So it means that if you want to let us say that we want to get a specific function, say function A, then we will be doing Fast API, we invoke it, and then we do a dot the function name. All right, dot, and then we keep doing that repeatedly for each time we want to do a reference a specific function from the Fast API model. So that which will not be nice, which will make our code not neat, right? So for this, I will assign this to a variable, and I'll call it variable app, and then I do that. So that means for each time I need to reference a function, and if I can simply just do app dot the function name, and it makes it clean and easy. All right, so what exactly again is Fast API? Remember, it's a framework that we use to do what, to build API. So usually, or should I say, the thing is that our Fast API code is just going to be a collections of functions with decorators. That is basically what your API code will mostly going to look like. Functions upon functions upon function that comes with what, with their decorators. All right. So to create a very simple endpoint, we have to carry out two things, right? We have to carry out the request decorator, right? Sorry, the function decorator that comes with the request method, right? And then the path, and then the path, and then the request function, right? Those are the things that we need to understand. The decorator that comes with the request method, and then within the request method is the path, and then the function that should execute for that specified path. Right, so how do we do this? So we create our decorator here and call this app, and then this app should reference a specific request method. Right, so in this case we want to reference the get method. Right, so we have other HTTP request method there available, so in the Fast API module, and as we go we will look at them one after the other. So we will need the decorator there, and should reference what a specific HTTP request, which in this case the get request, and then within the get request is your path. All right, so your path is basically the part of your URL immediately after the first slash. So in this case, I want to have a very simple URL that just says slash. So now this is more like a domain URL, or should I say an initial URL. So this is me saying after your domain, the slash after your domain, I want you to do what, to reference that path. Now once a user should get to that path, so now this is our HTTP request method, and then within it is what, our path, and then what is missing now is what is the function that should execute for that path. So in this case, I will create my function, of course our normal Python function, and then I'll give this function a name. I'll call this home for now, and then this function takes nothing at the moment, and then this function must return something. So now see that we need the decorator that comes with the path, and then the function, and then this function must return something. In this case, it can return a dictionary, can return a list, can even return a single number, as the case may be. It depends on what we want. Okay, so but in this case I'll return a dictionary, right? Because of course that's the whole purpose of Fast API, to do what, to send what a JSON structured and data type for so that other application can do what, can interact with our application. So in this case I will just return data. And what is data? I will simply say let data be what, a dictionary. That is simply a message that should say welcome to Fast API intermediate intermediate. All right, intermediate. All right, so as simple as that, and that we have created a very simple endpoint. So to create an endpoint, we need what? We need three things in mind. We need the decorator, right? That should reference what a specific HTTP request, right? Which in this case is the get, and then within this HTTP request, we this method from, all right, this HTTP method takes in what? A path. And remember, path is that part of our URL that comes after the first slash. That's basically a path, right? And then the decorator function, which in this case, that function that comes after the decorator, which in this case is what is home, is our home function, and then this function must return something. So the return response, the decorator function, and what the decorator itself that comes with what? With the HTTP method, and alongside with what? The path within the path within the HTTP function in quotation. All right. So that is basically a simple endpoint. So those are the things that we need to create an endpoint. I'll recap again. The decorator that comes with the HTTP request method, all right, and then it takes in the path, right? It takes that method takes in path, and then the function for the decorator, and then the function must return what? A value, must return something. Okay, so that is that, and then we are done. We're simply done. As easy as that. So we can now go back to our command prompt. Remember, please remember that we must be what? In the directory of our file. That's the main and the main folder. So we must be in the directory of what? Of our source code, which is what? The main folder. So in this, so after that, we could simply do what? We could simply run our development server. Now, to run your development server for fast API, we make use of one of the package that it installed, the UVCon package. This package here. So this package is what we will use to do what? To set up or to run our development server. So we can do that by saying UVCon, right, followed by the instance of our application, right, where what our application being invoked. So in this case, our application is being invoked here. The first API application is being invoked here and was assigned to what? To the variable called app. All right, so I will simply call that app, then followed by what? The file. In this case, it's main. And then I'll say dash reload, and you execute that, and that will do what? That will set up a folder. This will set up a project folder. Sorry, this will set up a development server for you, and then you can actually navigate that. You can actually navigate that in your browser. So it seems to throw an error. Okay, all right. So sorry, there is a mistake there, right? So the mistake there is from me. Sincere apology for that. So it's actually UVCon. So to actually execute this, you will make use of the module that actually comes. To actually start our development server, we make use of this package here that comes alongside fast API installation, and then we say UVCon, all right, and then what we want to do again is the file. Okay, so which file are we executing? In this case, we're executing what? The main file, which in this case happens to be more like our entry file that we want to execute, that may likely sometime in the future link to other files. All right, now the main file, and then followed by a colon, and then you want to know where exactly was the first API instance being initialized. In this case, within the main file, it's been initialized here and it's been assigned to this variable called app. So in this, so I'll come back here and I'll put app. So if you had used another variable, then you want to use that variable name there. So in this case, I use app, so I'll do app there. And then what I want to do is to add the dash dash reload. And the dash dash reload, what it does is it will help you, all right, so that your server will keep updating as you make changes to your source code, right? So you don't have to come back and be doing this manually, right? So it will automatically be updating. So if you execute this, then it will create a URL for you, and then you could use that to work, which you could see that now, which you could see that here, that says that what that UVCon is running on http dot colon //127.0.0.1 port 8000. That happens to be your local machine. So if you copy that URL and go to your browser then you can paste that there and you can execute, and it says internal server error. Internal server error. Okay. Alright, so you want to do this and not this. So you want to do this and not this. So you can go back now and then you refresh. So you can see that if you look at your command prompt, it automatically refresh. It refresh automatically. So you want to go back here and then you want to refresh, and you say that actually works. So we could see our simple API code there, right? Our simple API code right there. So it's that simple, right? It's that simple. And then you could do this for multiple routes, right? You can do it for multiple routes, as many routes as possible. So remember, our path was what, slash. So remember, I said that path is basically the part that, or the part of your URL that comes immediately after the domain name. In this case, was that comes immediately after the domain name or the slash. So in this case, our path here was slash. So that means if I add slash here and execute this still works. So this is more like, this particular path here is usually called the root path. The root path, because this is similar to just us writing only the domain name without that slash. Right, so with or without that slash, that will still work. So you can have as many endpoints as possible and just for the same thing. So we simply just copy again. If you want to create another endpoint, and we'll just this, and then this should be the part that comes after the slash. So in this case, I would say details. Okay, tutor. In this case, tutor dash details. All right, and then I'll have a return statement that simply has my name, and we just say savior pass in this case, and I'll call this one bootcamp version, and this is version 4.0. all right. So if we now navigate again to this, then you see that actually did work. All right, so if we go again, and remember, this is a path that should come immediately after the first slash in your URL. So we come again, and the first slash after my URL is this, and this should be tutor dash detail. And you see, let's confirm the URL, and that URL is correct. Okay, so details with S. So you come back, and then we add S here, and we execute tutor details. Let's verify that. All right, we are missing our /. Yes, and then let's copy this and let's put it back there. So let's confirm that that's actually what we did there. Let's confirm. confirm that URL again. So it's a get that should navigate to, okay, play the function name. Let's change this to tutor underscore details, tutor underscore details, and right. So this is the URL that should execute the function below. Please do not repeat your function name. Please do not repeat your function name. So let's go back and again. Let us refresh. It's saying not found. Let's confirm that we've done everything perfect. So okay, yeah. Confirm that. Okay. All right. So we're missing our slash. So there should be a slash there that comes. All right. So we remember this slash is more like us telling us after the domain followed by this slash, then your URL there. So if I go back and we refresh this, and this should work. So we have our URL up and running. So you can put this print, and then we have our endpoints right there. So it's that simple, right? It's that simple. So you could say that in space of minutes we were able to come up with what, with one endpoint. So with two endpoints, sorry. So we could also have other endpoints that also carry other requests, right? So please note that it's not only get requests, we have a lot of requests. We have the post request as well. So you can also have a post request that should say submit details. Submit, this should be submit details. Okay, that should be submit details, and then this should be give it a function name, submit details, and then we should also say we should have a message that says submit application submitted successfully. All right, successfully. With my C there. All right, and this will be message, and that's that. So we have our decorator, our function, and then of course this must return something. All right, it must return something. All right, so that is that. And then, but the thing is that if we try to navigate to access this, this will not work, right? Because that's a post request, and our browser has not given us room to carry out a post request. So if I try to come here and then paste this, we would see that I think our server is still trying to refresh, so to have that setup complete. So if I refresh again, so we get that we say that what that method not allowed. Okay, so we are not, that URL does not support get method, right? So it support post request. So in that case, we will likely need a third-party application to carry out, so for proper testing of our API endpoints. So that is where we will have to make use of Postman, right? To make use of Postman. So to actually navigate to Postman, we can simply go to this URL, postman.com/download. So if we navigate to this URL, postman.com, which is what slash download, it should take you here. Right, so Postman is also similar to Python. It will automatically detect your operating system and then give you the appropriate file for your operating system. So you can just click on here and then download. So please note that Postman only works for 64-bit operating system. Right, so it works for 64-bit operating system. So you can click that and then you can get it downloaded. So it will give you a file and then you can do what? Simply follow the proper installation process of the file, and it's quite simple. So you have to, once you open up the application, all you need to do is to log in. As simple as that. If you don't have an account with them, then you simply sign up and you are good to go. So I already have mine installed, so I'll actually open mine. Simply open mine, and there you go. So that is my own Postman. So that is basically that. So while Postman is coming up, let's just recap what we've done so far. So remember your main.py file, right? Your main.py file should, or sorry, your main folder is where all your source code should be located, right? So now all your files pertaining to your API application should be located in the main folder. So within this file, to make use of fast API, we need to do what? We need to first of all bring in fast API, right? Now once we bring in fast API by simply saying from fast API import fast API. Please notice the casing there. The F and the F there is caps lock, right? Notice the casing there, please. So after that, we have done that, we need to do what? We need to instantiate the fast API module. So we've done that here, and then we've assigned it to what? To a variable called app. It could be A, it could be B, it could be C, any variable name as you see fit. Now the reason for this is that so that we can be referencing some specific function within what? The fast API module, right? So such as the get HTTP request function, right? All right, such as that. So that lives within that, and we cannot actually get this if this is not actually instantiated, or if this is not actually executed. So we've done that as well. Then we can, after that, we can do what? We can start creating our endpoint. And I said to create an endpoint, right? To create an endpoint, we simply consider what? Three things: the decorator that comes with what? With the HTTP method, right? And then this HTTP method takes in the path, the URL path for that specific request, and then the function for the decorator, and then the function must return what? Something, must return a value, right? So those are the three things that we must put into consideration when creating API. So our Postman is up and running, and then we can do what? We can test for this. So so I have mine there. So I have mine there. So you could simply copy this URL that we try to access that did not actually work. You can copy it, and then we can take it to Postman, and then to create a request, or to make a request. To make a request, you can simply do what? You can simply click on you can simply click on this plus sign there that you have there. When you click on it, then you can paste your URL there. So in this case, this is the URL that we wish to access, but then our browser did not give us the room to choose to make a post request, but Postman gives us the ability to make post request. So I'll simply just change this here to what? To the appropriate request. So we click on post, and then you can click on send, and Postman will make will make a post request to our application, and then to show the appropriate message. So you could say that this worked. We have our message that says application submitted successfully. Even if we not actually submit any application, I'm just showing you that of course we can make other kinds of requests. So that's that about basic endpoint, and as we go forward, we will write complicated endpoint with a lot of logic. So this is quite simple, right? So this is just to get our our hands to punch on keys on our keyboard. So that is that about an overview of Fast API, how to install Fast API, and how to set up our project folder, and also writing basic Fast API endpoint, and also installing a Postman, which is what we'll be using to test our Fast API. So that is that, guys. So I'll that is that for today, and then I'll see us in the next class. Thank you.